Let's see if I can get these lights adjusted and see if that works. Hold on. Hold on. Might be too dark. Hold on. Nope. Let's see. Oh, there we go. That's what I want. All right. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to go through a lot of things today, so it's going to go a little fast. Right off the bat, I'm going to mention, so I'm going to throw a lot of URLs and web links at you. If you go on to course content, there's a new folder that's popped up called Class Registration at Marshall University. All of the URLs that are in this presentation are in that folder, so you don't need to worry too much about writing everything down. Everything's in this folder. Also, these notes are available online as well. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you, I'm canceling the quiz for this week because I want you to take that time and actually go through some of the pieces of advice I'm going to give you at the end of the presentation. Also, if you are listed as a freshman in DegreeWorks, if this is truly your first semester at Marshall and you're not here today, I mean, it doesn't apply to anybody in here, but we're going to place an advising hold on your account so that you'll need to meet with your advisor before you can register for classes, which, by the way, you should meet with your advisor anyways. With that, I'm going to jump right into it. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about tips and advice on how to register for classes next semester. Oh, I did think of one other thing. Just so you're aware, for next week, in case you see a bunch of folks in here with cameras and you're like, what are these people doing? There are some folks doing a documentary on the Green Bank Observatory. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a research facility out in the eastern part of the state, and they wanted to get some sort of secondary footage of inside a course at Marshall. So if you see some folks with cameras and whatnot next week, don't freak out. They're just doing some background footage. So just wanted to throw that out at you. Okay. Let's get right into the topic of discussion. I want to talk about registering for classes next semester. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to teach you specifically how to register for classes. When I was developing this presentation, I actually went to a bunch of juniors and seniors. I asked them, I said, when you were in this class, what did you need to hear that we didn't tell you? And they said, well, nobody really told us how to register for classes. It was our first semester, and we walked into summer orientation, and our classes were picked out for us. And then we never heard exactly how to do this in some of our first semester courses, so we were actually kind of clueless, right around now. So I'm actually going to teach you how to do that today. I'm also going to talk about general degree requirements for you civils, mechanicals, electricals. I even have some stuff in here for the biomedicals in here. And then I also have some general advice for you at the end. So I'm going to get right into it. One point I'll mention briefly. I'm doing this presentation to try and address the majority of needs of the people in this room, but I'm not going to answer every question for you. For instance, I'm not my goal isn't to try and answer things like financial aid questions. If you have scholarships, GI Bills, things like that, you need to either be discussing that with your academic advisor or with the financial aid office. I will say, though, to that, in general, those of you with scholarships or full-time enrollment requirements, anything like that, you should be targeting around 15 credit hours per semester, which really isn't that big of a deal in engineering. That's usually a really easy target to meet, but that's just a target. Again, meet with your advisor and discuss with the financial aid office if you have any issues. And again, our goal as academic advisors is to try and ensure that you have the quickest path towards graduation. So any questions, direct at us. Okay, let's start off with advanced registration dates. As you may be aware, we're in advanced registration mode right now. Priority registration has already opened up for some students here at Marshall. But generally, this is the schedule for priority registration if you're a student at Marshall. They give the seniors the first dibs because they're trying to get out of here. So you as freshmen, your registration doesn't open up until November 13th. I have here November 14th and 15th on here. That's actually a typo. I would just pay attention to the table. Registration for you starts at November 13th. I'll be perfectly honest with you. It's probably not a bad idea that Monday. If it's, I would stay up late, get you some Monsters or Red Bulls or NOS's, whatever your preferred energy drink is, and stay up late that night to register, because once registration starts, you'd be surprised how quickly some of these classes fill up. Now, if it's an engineering class, you can usually approach the engineering division, and we can probably try and work around that and get you into these courses. But some of these, English classes or communications classes and whatnot, if you have your eyes set on a particular section, I would try and register for that as soon as possible, because you'll be surprised how quickly it's going to fill up. So let's get into the registration process step by step, okay? So the very first thing that you need to do is you need to figure out specifically what courses that you want to take, okay? So if you go to this web link, again, the links are available on Blackboard. You don't need to worry about writing these down. They're all right there in course content. You can just Google Marshall University schedule of courses, and it's the first link that pops up. It'll take you to this following page. Now, instead of referring to the PowerPoint, I'm actually going to pull up this page here in Google Chrome. So here's the page. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select Spring 2019. And so what this does is it lists every single course being offered at Marshall University, split up into undergraduate courses at the top and then graduate courses at the bottom. You don't need to worry about the graduate courses. And it's split up by subject. So there's courses in geology, courses in French, courses in finance, what have you. For instance, if you click, let's say, the civil engineering courses, so this is every civil engineering course that's being taught at Marshall University next semester. The one number I want you to pay attention to on this list, I know it's a little difficult for some people, but I want you to pay attention to what's called the CRN number. Every single one of these courses has a CRN number next to it. So for instance, next semester, if you want to take reinforced concrete with the worst professor ever, just kidding, that's me. If you look, you'll see that the CRN for that course is 2357. A CRN is a course reference number. Every course at Marshall has one assigned. It's kind of like a serial number. To give you kind of an idea of what I mean by that, if you go to, let's say, English, let's say the English department, and you go to English 101, there's oodles and oodles of different English 101 courses. But every English 101 course, every individual section has a unique CRN number. So if you want to be in that particular section or you need to take that particular course, the CRN number is the one that you want to write down. Another thing to keep in mind, if you start scrolling, and English is a good place because there are some courses that fill up fast. If you start scrolling, you'll see some courses that show up red, like this one right here. The reason why this course is showing up red is because it's full, okay? So any course that shows up red is a course that's full that you're probably going to have a difficult time registering for. Hence why, like I said, priority registration has already opened up, and some of these sections are already full. So it's something to be aware of. Now, one other thing that's really nifty about this schedule of courses, if you look here at the top, okay, so here it says search the open class list. We have undergraduate courses, graduate courses. If you see this link right here where it says view Core 1 and Core 2 courses only, if you click this, okay, it's going to show up empty, okay? The reason why is because you haven't indicated what you're looking for. This is a really nifty tool if you're trying to figure out some of those general education courses that you want to take. So I'm sure some of you are aware that we have, general requirements here at Marshall for every degree program. Everybody has to have a certain amount of fine arts and a certain amount of humanities and what have you. This is a really nifty tool to help you search out some of those courses. So for instance, let's say I want to find all of the social science courses that are offered at Marshall that have a critical thinking designation. So what I can do is I can check social science, and then it sort of chugs up a little bit, and then I can check critical thinking. Okay, and what it's doing now, it's populated a unique list. Every single one of these courses that are being offered have social science designation and also have a critical thinking designation. So you've probably heard maybe during summer orientation that there's the opportunity for double dipping. You can take one course that has a number of different attributes that'll get you towards graduation. This is a great way to search for those classes. So everybody okay with that so far? Okay, good. All right, so here in the presentation, just so you're aware, I'm going to skip a couple of slides because these slides are basically just showing exactly what I just talked about, how the CRN number is the most important number that you need to reference. If a section's red, it's full. You can also query courses in Core 1, Core 2 with the link below, and so on and so forth. There's another really nifty tool that's available to you called a course schedule generator. If there's another web link that I would write down, or again, you don't need to write them down, they're on Blackboard, but if there's another web link that's worth mentioning, it's this one. This is a really nifty tool that's pretty new here at Marshall. It hasn't been around too long, but what it will do is it will help you figure out the different permutations of schedules based on your needs. So to give you kind of an idea, I have the course schedule generator popped up. Okay, let's say you know that you have a certain number of classes that you need to take next semester. So let's say you know that you need to take Engineering 102. So we'll add some classes here. So let's say we'll add Engineering 102. Let's add that. And let's say you need to take Engineering 111, just for the sake of discussion. And let's throw another one in there. Let's say you need to take English. So let's say you need to take English 101. Just for discussion purposes. You hit add, and you hit generate. Now what's happening down here is you've got oodles and oodles of different schedules. What this tool did is it went into the course schedule and it figured out every single permutation of Engineering 102, Engineering 111, and English 101 that didn't have any conflicts, didn't have any situations where the courses were offered at the same time. So you could pick any one of these schedules. Let's just pick, I don't know, schedule number 8. Okay, and let's sort of look at that a little bit. Okay, so here's schedule number 8. It's telling you, here's your breakdown of your daily schedule. You can close this, and if you go to schedule number 8, hit the little button on the side. Now you can see all the CRNs for those courses being taught, all the times, and everything that you need for registration. So this is a really nifty tool for you to use to help figure out different permutations for your schedule. Everybody good so far? All right. Now let me be absolutely crystal clear with where we're at in the presentation. Up until now, you have not actually registered for classes, okay? That schedule generator, the looking up schedule of courses, that's just you figuring out what you need to take. You haven't actually picked out what you need to take. You have to actually go and register, okay? So here's how you do that, okay? You start off by logging on to MyMU and log on, which, by the way, I actually got a student to go through and do screen captures of their MyMU so that you would actually see what the interface looks like from your end. See, as professors, our interface on MyMU looks a little different, so we don't have some of these options like you do. So I wanted to make sure that the interface looked just the same. So you log into MyMU, and when you're on MyMU, if you look over here on the right, there's a little group of buttons under Student Self-Service. And if you look at Student Self-Service, there's a button called Registration. You click that registration button and it brings down a drop-down list, and you'll see where it says Add or Drop Classes. Okay? So click the Add or Drop Classes link and it'll bring up an option that looks something like this. So you go into your drop-down box, select the current term. So for us, that's going to be spring 2019 because you're trying to register for next semester. And then you'll see this. It'll be a little worksheet, and it'll have a bunch of blank boxes, and it'll ask for CRNs. That's where those course reference numbers come into play. So if you need to take reinforced concrete design, you'd go in and you'd enter 2357 and what have you, and then bam, it would register that. So you add in all of your CRNs, click Next, and you should see those classes populate here at the bottom. Now there's for each class there's a drop-down box under Action. Make sure that you go into each one of those, change it to Registered, and hit Submit again. That's just to ensure that you are in the class, and you should observe a change here in the status column where it should say Web Registered on whatever date, or you're registered for this class on each date. You can then go back into Student Self-Service under your course schedule and hit the Day, Time, Schedule button, and it will show you. You can just pick a day within your semester. So if it's next semester, pick Valentine's Day, and it'll tell you during that week what is your day-by-day schedule going to be. What class you're in, what room you're in, how long that class operates, start to end, and so on and so forth. Everybody okay with that? All right, any questions on the registration process so far? Okay, now, for you mechanical engineers and you electrical engineers, you need to perk your ears up, you need to listen to this, okay? Now, every one of our engineering degrees at Marshall requires some degree of physics and some degree of chemistry. However, some of the degrees don't require the lab because you're taking other lab courses in other ways to counteract that. So here's a good example. For you mechanical engineers, you are required to take Chemistry 1. You're required to take Principles of Chemistry 1, Chem 211. But you do not have to take the lab, okay? So you have to take Chem 211, but you don't have to take the lab. But here's the problem. The computer, the banner, the system that registers you for classes, it's not smart enough to know that as a mechanical engineer, you don't have to take the lab. So if you're registering for classes and you say, well, I just need to take Chem 211, the system isn't going to let you register for the class, okay? So here's the process. You need to register for both. Pick the worst section of Chem lab that you can find. Pick the one that's Saturday at 6 in the morning. You know, whatever section of Chem lab that you need to secure a seat in the chemistry lecture, okay? Get yourself a seat in chemistry, get yourself a seat in the lab, and then we will drop you later, okay? So I'm telling you right now, you know, if you come to your advisor and go, well, I tried to register for chemistry and it didn't let me, did you register for the lab? Well, no. Well, that's why, okay? Register for the class and for the lab, we will drop you later, okay? You're good. So basically what's going to happen is once you've registered for both, you can go to the division office and we'll drop you from the lab. Does everybody know where the division office is? Okay, here's the new engineering building. Here's the atrium. There's the elevators. You know, come from the elevators. Here's the big engineering division suite. Yes, sir?
I registered for the chemistry class,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't make me register for the lab. Will it drop that class automatically? Or?
It's actually possible. I would check with the division office to make sure. That's actually possible. So, all right. Did you come in with transfer credits from high school or college?
I have some, but none related to.
What you're saying to me sounds a little bit more like a glitch that probably won't happen to anybody else.
Well, I mean, as long as it works, I guess.
Well, that's fine. I would, again, just go to the division suite just to make sure. I don't want to see yourself get dropped. So that's how it's been since we started mechanical engineering. Maybe they changed it this year, but I haven't heard that. So.
Actually, I had the same thing where it didn't.
Really? Well, if it's not stopping you, then maybe I'm wrong. But in case it's giving you issues, go ahead and sign up for the lab just in case. Maybe they changed that. Never mind. Now, let me also say this. That's for chemistry. For you electrical engineers, you're required to take Physics 1, but not the lab. So it might work for chemistry, but it might not work for physics. Different departments have different policies. So maybe the chemistry department approved that for them, but not for physics. So just be aware of that, okay? If you need any scheduling adjustments or anything like that that you can't do on your own, the division suite is on the second floor. It's room 2201. You can't miss it. There's a big green and white wooden sign on the top that says engineering. Speak to Lee McDonald. You all probably been receiving a bunch of emails from her. Speak to her and she can help you out. Let's talk about degree requirements, specifically the Core 1 and Core 2 requirements at Marshall, because every single person in this room has to meet Core 1 and Core 2 and additional requirements for their degrees at Marshall. There are a few places where if what I'm telling you is not enough, if you need some additional info, you can go to the college catalog. There's this, if you go on to this PDF on Blackboard, you can click this and it'll take you right to the college catalog. Make sure you're using the college catalog for the year that you started at Marshall. So this is for you sophomores in the room. So if you started, let's say, last year, and this is your first year actually in engineering, make sure you're going off of the 2017-2018 catalog. You can find some of this stuff on the division homepage. We have breakdowns of your course-by-course plan for each year. You can go to your advisor, as well as DegreeWorks. I think during your summer orientation, you were probably shown DegreeWorks. If you have not seen it before, go to MyMU, again, log in, and under MyMU, there's a button that just straight says DegreeWorks. It has the little graduation cap logo. Once you click that, DegreeWorks is a pretty nifty tool. It'll literally is a checklist, a breakdown of every single class that you need in order to graduate at Marshall with your degree. So I had a student pull up theirs just to sort of give you kind of an idea. So this particular student is a junior. They are 66% done with their degree. They've done their Core 1 requirements, their Core 2 requirements. They have some additional requirements they have to meet. And this checklist is pretty long. It goes for a couple of pages. Another nice thing about DegreeWorks, it will tell you who your advisor is. So for this particular advisor, or for this particular student, their advisor is Dr. Waite, okay? So when we say meet with your advisor, this is a way that you can determine who your advisor is. Go on here, see your advisor is Dr. Waite. You can contact Dr. Waite and schedule an appointment for advising if you have any questions about your schedule. Now, as for Core 1, Core 2 requirements, every single degree at Marshall University must meet these requirements. I don't care if you're an engineering major, a nursing major, a philosophy major, it doesn't matter. Every degree at Marshall University has to basically take the courses off this list. Now, I'm crossing out math and science because you're engineering students. You're going to take plenty of math and science. You don't have to worry about going out of your way to meet those requirements at Marshall because you meet those by a mile. You do have to meet Core 1 requirements, though. Everybody in here has to take FYS, and everybody has to take 6 hours of courses that have a CT designation, a critical thinking designation. However, you really only have to go out of your way to take one of them because everybody in here will take Calculus 1, and Calculus 1 carries with it a CT designation. So you just have to find one class that has a CT designation, and you meet Core 1. As for Core 2, everybody in here has got to have 6 hours of English credit. You have to have a communications course, either Communications 103 or 207. You have to take a social science class, a humanities class, and a fine arts class. As for additional requirements, everybody in here has to take 6 hours of courses with writing intensive components. However, you don't have to worry about 3 of them because we teach Engineering 451, which is the introduction to project management within engineering, and it carries with it a writing intensive certification. So you only have to go out of your way to take one of them. You also have to take a course that has a multicultural international requirement. Now again, I say double dipping is possible. It's not too hard to find a social science course that also has a multicultural designation or also has a CT designation. So that's pretty straightforward. The reason why I say don't count on it is because I'm sure you all have gotten to chatting about the schedule, and I'm sure you've heard of the mythical English 200 Texting the World class that checks every box under the sun. Well, everybody knows that that class checks every box, so it fills up fast, okay? So don't count on a course like that. Just make sure that you're planning your schedule appropriately, okay? That would be my stance on that. In this presentation, I include the first year plan for civils. So I'm going to use the civil one, but I have all of them. So if you're a first year Bachelor of Science in Engineering, Civil Engineering emphasis student, generally this should be what you're in now for your first semester. So generally this should be what you're in for your second semester. I know that everybody in here is probably going to have some very slight variations on that, and that's fine. But generally, if you're a civil engineering student, for example, you should be in CAD computations next semester. You should be in whatever math class you're in now, you should be advancing into the next one. And physics with the lab, probably not a bad idea now if you can fit it into your schedule. And so this is the general plan for civil engineering students. I went ahead and included the first year plan for mechanical engineering students. So very similar for the civils and mechanicals. Their first year is very closely identical, except for the CAD is different as of now. Electrical engineering deviates a little bit because instead of CAD and computations, you're taking other courses. The electrical students, sometimes, if you're not in the course now, next semester you should be taking CS 110, which is Computer Science 1. That'll get you into some of those programming courses later. Again, press on with the math and your physics course. I went ahead and threw the plan for biomedical engineering students as well. Biomedical, you're actually going into chemistry your first semester, CAD and computations, continuing on with the math, and also if you're a biomedical student, you need to start planning to take biology in the near future because biomedical engineering, that's going to be kind of important. Now, some of you might be pre-engineering students. I want to preface this plan by making a very specific point. Because some of our curriculums deviate quite a bit, like electrical engineering is a little bit different than civil and mechanical and what have you, you might find that the pre-engineering plan is a little different. What I have here on the slide is a plan that pretty much, it matches pretty close with the civil 5-year plan, the mechanical 5-year plan, electrical 5-year plan, but there are some slight variations depending upon your major. So what I'll say is this: if you're a pre-engineering student, this is not a bad idea for your first year, but this is where you should meet with your advisor to ensure that you're on the correct path moving forward. Sound good? All right. Last, I do have some fundamental pieces of advice that I would like to give you as you progress throughout your degree. I got this advice, this not only from myself. This was some stuff that I thought would be good for you to pay attention to. But I pretty much polled just about every faculty in the engineering division. I said, what do you think I ought to tell them today as freshmen? What do you think would be some really good pieces of advice as you progress throughout your degree and as you begin the registration process for this semester? Okay, and so I boiled it down to, I've got 6 pieces of advice. Okay, my first piece of advice to you is meet with your advisor. Okay, now I know every advisor does this a little differently. If you have me as an academic advisor, you received an email from me, I want to say a little over a week ago, where I invited you to come make an appointment. I had blocked off schedule on a certain day, and we could come work out your schedule. That's what I do. Some professors take a little bit of a different approach where they just say, you contact me and we'll schedule an appointment. But by and large, we are one of, if not your best resource for appropriate course selection. We know the curriculum like the back of our hand. We understand the prerequisites, what courses you need to take in order to get into the next one. And once you take that course, what it opens up for you in the future. We can help you if you're off the 4-year plan or off the 5-year plan. We can answer questions regarding requirements and content of specific courses. We're here to help. We can also help you if you've got scheduling problems, if you've got certain classes that are full or certain classes that are not available. You want to take structural analysis in the spring. Guess what? We don't offer structural analysis in the spring. So what can you take in its place so that you're moving forward at the fastest pace possible? That's what we're here for, okay? But I say that with a caveat. Please do not knock on my door Friday at 5 p.m. going, hey, let's do this. Don't do that, okay? Send me an email, try and keep it professionally worded. Say, dear Professor Michelson, dear Dr. Michelson, I need to make an appointment with you for academic advising. Tell me when you're available. Say, I'm available on Mondays after 1 p.m., on Tuesdays after 10 a.m., what have you. Put your 901 number in the message. It helps us track who we're advising. And your 901 number is the key to opening up all the information that we need to give you appropriate advice. So again, that's my first piece of advice. Meet with your advisor. Send him an email if you have, if you need to schedule an appointment, throw your 901 number in there and make sure you keep it professionally worded. All right, that's my first piece of advice. Here's my second piece of advice. I think you need to learn your degree requirements a little bit. This happened to me yesterday. I had a student come to me and said he needed an advising appointment. I said, well, do you have any idea what you need to take next semester? I don't know. Do you know when you plan on graduating? I don't know. Do you know what you're taking this semester? I don't know. Do you know what city you're in? I don't know. It happened yesterday to me. Look, I'm here to help you out, okay? I want to see you progress through your degree as fast as possible. And it is my job to take where you're at and try and figure out the fastest permutation to complete your degree. But it's not my future. It's your future, okay? So it's on you, I believe, a little bit to learn the requirements of your degree. I'm not saying it's not okay to have questions. That's absolutely fine. If you are planning out your schedule and you can't quite figure something out, or you're not sure what you should be taking to move forward, that's fantastic. I've had students come to me and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking of taking. Is this all right? And sometimes I say, great. And sometimes I say, yeah, that's fine. Maybe we ought to switch this class for this one to keep you moving forward a little faster. But just don't expect me to do it for you, okay? Because, again, it's your future. It's not mine. I want to see us succeed, but we can't do the work completely for you. You need to take charge of your destiny a little bit. So I think it's on you to learn your degree requirements just a little bit. All right. Cardinal rule number 1 with picking classes next semester. You press on with the math, okay? Whatever math class you are in right now, you need to be taking the next one next semester. I don't care what your major is, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. If you are in Calc 1 right now, Calc 2 next semester, automatically. If you are in pre-calculus this semester, Calc 1 next semester. If you're in algebra this semester, pre-calc next semester. No ifs, ands, or buts. Okay? Right there. Engineering is a very prerequisite-driven curriculum. Okay? In order to take transportation engineering, you have to take geomatics. In order to take geomatics, you have to have CAD and computations. In order to take those, you have to have a degree of math. In order to take mechanics of deformable bodies, you need statics. In order to take statics, you need calculus. It usually always starts with math. Okay? The students that get behind, the students that are off sequence, by and large, it's because of their math classes. I also have sort of a caveat to that. Do your absolute very best not to drop anything. Specifically, your math, science, and engineering courses. And I know it's tough, and I know that sometimes you have to make, you got a tough decision you got to make. When in doubt, do your absolute very best not to drop anything, okay? Because it can really affect your progress down the line. And I know it's a tough decision, or it's a tough prospect, but it's just the facts of the matter. Number 4, engineering courses, math courses, and science courses take priority. And what I mean by that is if you are registering for classes and you find that physics conflicts with history, history can wait, okay? Physics you need to take now, okay? So you need to be making sure that when you're advancing forward on the plan that your math, physics, and chemistry courses and your engineering courses are taking the priority. They are what are going to define what's called the critical path to get you out of here as soon as possible. You can fit in a history course whenever, okay? So now if you can follow the plan and take everything that you need to take and throw the communications course in there, great. But make sure that you're pressing on with the engineering, math, and science courses first. All right. This one I think is probably the most bitter pill to swallow for freshman students. You're in Calc 1, you got the most awesome professor ever, you love that professor. And then Calc 2 comes, ugh, man, I've heard some horror stories about that one. I'm going to wait and take Calc 2 until I get a professor I like. Well, guess what? You've just delayed graduation by doing that, okay? Sometimes you might prefer to take a class a little later. Maybe the class isn't a desirable time. I'm not getting up at 8 a.m. That ain't happening. The only time they're offering Calc 2 is 8 a.m. and PUBG and Fortnite's too important. Or is it Fallout 76 now, right? Maybe you've had that professor before and I don't want to take them again. Well, I'm going to give you an honest piece of advice. Sometimes advancement needs to take place over preference. Sometimes you need to make a grown-up decision, suck it up, and take the course that's required that's going to get you moving forward. Otherwise, you're going to be here longer, okay? That's going to extend the time required for your degree, and that's going to delay not only your graduation, but your career, okay? So that's just to be honest with you, all right? My last and final piece of advice is to try to stick to the plan, okay? Everybody here, whether you're a civil engineer, mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, what have you, there's a pattern sheet, and it tells you this is what you should be taking your 3rd semester, this is what you should be taking your 4th semester, what have you. Now, this is my 5th year here at Marshall, and I've advised a lot of students, and I will tell you, I have never met one student that followed that plan perfectly, never, okay? But I have met students that followed the plan closely enough, particularly the engineering, math, and science courses, that they finished exactly when they were supposed to. Maybe they swapped a social science for a humanities class or what have you, or maybe they put the humanities class off a semester and decided to take transportation early, stuff like that, and that's fine. But what I'm getting at is let's take structural engineering. We teach structural analysis in the fall so that we can teach reinforced concrete design and steel design in the spring. So you need to plan for that accordingly. If you start developing your plans, I want to take structural analysis in the spring. Guess what? It's not offered here in the spring. So you need to make sure that you're following that plan as closely as possible. And like I said, I know that everybody's going to have a unique scenario. You might have dropped a class here and there. You might have changed majors. Let's say this is actually your 3rd semester here at Marshall because you were a journalism major for your 1st year and you decided to come into engineering. So you're going to be in a different scenario. And I understand that. But do your best to try and take courses based on that plan as closely as possible. Try and take your fall courses in the fall and your spring courses in the spring. Also, I don't want anybody in here to completely write off the notion of maybe taking a summer course if you're really behind to try and catch up. I mean, I know, it might be a bitter pill to swallow to pay that tuition for a summer course, but that one summer course might get you out of here a semester quicker, So you think, if I take something over the summer, I might graduate in May instead of December. That's kind of a big deal. So, just make sure that you're, following the plan, make sure that you're meeting with your advisor, you're taking your math courses as a priority, learn the degree a little bit, and advancement over preference. All right. Now, it's your future, and it's your time to start scheduling. So with that, I want to open the floor and see if anybody has any questions about course registration, about anything I've been talking about. Are there any questions at all? Yes? That's a good question. So, just so do you have a? Can you? Okay, that's a good question. So, so just so everybody's clear, so everybody asks, what she's asking about is course substitution. She needs Computer Science 110, and she's got another course that's very, very similar. What I would suggest that you do is this. The first thing that you need to do is meet with your advisor, okay? There is, within our division, a course substitution form. What you're talking about is something that, honestly, even your advisor is not even going to be able to decide on their own. We have a mechanism within the division in order to make those types of decisions for unique circumstances. We have a division curriculum committee that will make that decision. So we'll fill out a course substitution form for you, and then the division curriculum committee will decide whether or not to approve that. If they do, then you're good. If not, then you'll have to go back and take that CS 110. Let me say one other thing. If you have, just so everybody's aware, if you have like one course that doesn't quite fall on the sequence, we do have a free elective built into the engineering curriculum for most of these majors. So if you have a course that's like, well, it didn't quite count for this, we can probably count it as your free elective so that you're at least counting it for something, and it's not just, a complete waste of time. Think like you had something else? Well, the first thing I would do is just to try and meet with your advisor. Do you know who your advisor is? Then I would go to the division suite, and maybe you would need to talk to Dr. Salem, and he can probably navigate those decisions a little more accurately. Any other questions? Again, this is your time. Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Is there going to be an engineering professions class next semester?
No. As far as I know, Engineering 104 is one of those courses that's taught in the fall. But that doesn't mean that we can't figure out a way of keeping you moving forward. You might be a little off sequence now, and then you make it up next semester.
It's not really a prerequisite for
I think it is for one class. I'd have to look at the pattern sheet. But again, it doesn't mean that you can't progress forward through your degree. It doesn't mean you're just going to be sitting there twiddling your thumbs until this next fall. We can find something else for you to take. So, I think I saw some. Yes, sir.
Would you recommend taking the first, I'm a civil engineer.
Yes.
Would you recommend taking the first civil engineering class this coming up semester?
Is there a specific class you're thinking about?
I haven't looked. I've seen CE, like 102.
Yes. Typically, first semester civil students take CAD and computations, and civil engineering students take CE 102 CAD. The mechanical engineering students take ENGR 102 CAD. The difference between the two classes is they both cover computer-aided drafting, but the difference is they use different software packages. The civil engineers are exposed to MicroStation because the state, the Army Corps, consulting firms, they all use that package. Whereas mechanical engineers use a drafting package called NX because it's a little more appropriate for mechanical engineering. You're learning the same thing just through a different medium, the medium that's appropriate for you. But the short answer to your question is you should be in CAD and computations next semester for sure. You should be in CAD, computations, whatever your next math class is. And that's at least half your schedule figured out. The rest, I would either follow the pattern sheet, meet with your advisor, make sure you're moving forward. This is your time, and please, if there is any question. Yes, sir?
How many hours are too many hours?
How many hours are too many hours? That's a good question. So let me say a few things about that. So right off the bat, you as students at Marshall are allowed to take up to 18 hours without additional permission. We have permitted students that are juniors and seniors to go a little bit above that if it means getting them out of here. So for instance, if it's your last semester and you'll get out taking 19 hours, more often than not, we will permit that because we're not going to make you stay a whole nother semester or a whole nother year because of 1 credit hour. We're not going to do that to you. Now that being said, we usually don't let freshmen take 19, 20 hours, something like that, unless they make a very strong case. And on top of that, and for good or ill, this is sort of the facts of it, we usually tend to look at your GPA to see whether or not we're going to let that happen. And it's not because we're trying to discriminate and say, well, this student is fine, this student isn't. It's more about trying to ensure your success. If you've demonstrated that you're fine, that you have a fairly strong GPA, then we as engineering faculty feel a little bit more comfortable letting you push the envelope a little bit. But if your GPA has been struggling, we would be setting you up for failure by saying, oh, go ahead and take 22 hours. That's not really fair to you. So it's up to us to give you appropriate advice, and that's how we're going to do that. There's a form that you fill out if you ever want to go above 18 hours. I'm going to go ahead and tell you 95% of the case, we're probably going to say no to freshmen, to be honest with you. So, unless there's a real good reason. If you have some very extenuating circumstances. You got a co-op or you're going abroad or something, you're an honor student or something. I don't know. But pretty rare. So. Any other questions? This is your time. I want to make sure that you feel comfortable registering because this is the last time that one of us as a professor is going to be ordering you to this. After this, you're on your own. Yes, sir? That's a good question. So the question was, if you fail a class, how do you go about repeating it? By the way, I'm repeating the questions because of the recording. You may or may not be aware of this, but there is a rule at Marshall called the DF repeat rule. Okay, and so let me explain the DF repeat rule so that you're aware. Any course that you take within your first 60 credit hours at Marshall, you are allowed to repeat. So let me give you a scenario. Let's say you take Calculus 1. And you fail it. And you took it your first semester, you failed it. The next semester, you take Calc 1 again and you get an A. What happens is that F vanishes off your GPA calculation, and the only thing that's counted is an A. Okay? So a couple things about that, though. Number one, we only grant that privilege to any course that you took within your first 60 credit hours as a college student. So if it's your senior year and you fail steel design, that F sticks, okay? It just is what it is, okay? Here's the other caveat, and this is something you need to be aware of. Let's go back to that scenario. Let's say it's your first semester, and it's Calculus 1, and you get a D. So you go, oh, I got to repeat that. So you take it again, and you get an F. The F sticks, okay? Unfortunately, it's whatever you get the second time is what sticks, okay? Now, if you repeat a course within your first 60 hours and you do better and you'd like that to count, I believe there's a form you need to fill either in the division office or the site office, but it's a very easy process, okay? But it's within your first 60 hours. It's another reason why I highly recommend that right now you don't drop anything, okay? Because here's the thing, okay? Let's say you're in a calculus class and you're like, I don't know how this is going, man. Finals coming. Whew. This class isn't too integral to my success right now. But here's the thing, and you're thinking about dropping it, okay? I highly recommend don't. First off, you have no idea what's going to happen between now and December. Between now and December, you might get the final and ace it and get a B in the class and you're fine, okay? And then you can move on to Calc 2 and keep progressing forward. If nightmare scenario happens and you fail it, you can repeat it, get a higher grade, and the F goes away. But if you drop it, now you've already set yourself behind and you didn't get a chance to go back and fix it. Okay? So I highly recommend that you don't drop anything for the first couple semesters. Okay? Highly recommend it. All right? Now, once you get past your first 60 hours, That's a little bit different, but in all honesty, I kind of think sociology cranks in a little bit because by then you're sort of used to college and you've developed your routine. I mean, you all are freshmen, you're still figuring out what it means to be a college student. After your first 60 hours, you've sort of got the routine and the patterns, what it means to be a college student figured out, and so usually that calms down a little bit. So yeah. Does that kind of answer your question? Any other questions? This is good stuff. I like answering this. Yes?
Out of curiosity, because so my dad works at Mount West.
Mm-hmm.
If I do summer courses at Mount West, would it be transferred?
That's a good question. Are you talking about an engineering class or are you talking about just a general class? Here's what I'm going to say. If it's a general class, it'll probably transfer. But you need to do your diligence to check that. It's probably not a bad idea. That's probably a question for Dr. Salem. I would go to the division office and make sure, because at the very least, he'll point you in the right direction as to where you need to go. We're generally not going to make a big deal about that at Marshall as long as you do your diligence and check. But engineering classes, that's kind of another story. And the reason why is this. You all have probably heard this term ABET pop up, ABET accreditation. Y'all heard that pop up? Okay, well, what ABET accreditation means is that our degree has met sort of the national standard for what it means to be an engineering degree. Well, with that comes certain requirements. We have to ensure that you are meeting the standards for certain requirements. So if we just let you go and take fluid mechanics wherever, well, that's a little bit, we can't really do that. I'm not saying you can't transfer that course in, but it requires an evaluation. We have to go and check that course, check the requirements of that course, and see, if you take this course at another institution, is it really going to meet the requirements equivalent to what we teach here? Sometimes that answer is yes, sometimes it's no. But if you go and I'll just take this course over here and it'll be fine, I wouldn't do that. I highly recommend that you don't do that, because what might happen is you might waste your time and your money. So don't do that. Yes, sir.
So, on Marshall's website somewhere, I know I've seen it. Marshall actually has colleges that are around here.
Mm-hmm.
They have an equivalency. It tells you what course that college has and what courses it is equivalent to at Marshall.
And that's what I'm talking about general, like your core 1, core 2, and stuff like that. Yeah, and usually it's not a big deal. It's usually not a big deal for that stuff because of what you're saying, that a lot of that stuff has been figured out. I'm saying be very, very wary of doing that stuff for, your upper level major classes, because it's Marshall that's granting you the degree in engineering, not, some other, ancillary college somewhere else. I'm not saying, again, I don't want that to mean that you can't do that, but don't just do it on your own. Do the diligence before you register for that class. Figure out whether or not that class is going to be equivalent before you slap down cash money on the table. All right. We got a couple minutes. I mean, are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
Can you go back to the electrical engineering slide?
There we go.
I need to retake chemistry. Okay. I'm at 17 hours. So but I've already taken all the communications.
Mm-hmm.
Would I be able to swap it in my chemistry class, or is that
Yeah. Let me preface that though by saying this. Some of the plans are arranged this way, and I know if Greg had his way, he might swap some of this around, but I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, if you're taking math, physics, and chemistry in the same semester, that's a lot, okay? So that is a heavy load for a first-time college student. So I do recommend not doing that if you can avoid it. But if you are going to do that, take math, physics, and chemistry and either almost nothing else or the easiest course you can find on your curriculum. Because that's a lot. It really is. So yes.
All right, so best case scenario, next semester I'm taking calculus 2,
Yes.
and then maybe either physics or chemistry. How would you recommend that, or how I can
What's your major?
electrical?
Here's what I would say, okay? Here's what I would say, okay? And I'm gonna answer the question if you're a civil engineer, and I think you'll see where I'm going, okay? In civil engineering, chemistry opens the way to environmental engineering later. So there's a critical path there. You have to complete your chemistries by a certain point in order to be able to take environmental engineering later on. Physics, however, doesn't really operate that way in civil engineering. Like, you have to have it, but that's it, okay? So my answer to you is, honestly, you kind of need to look at the electrical engineering curriculum and see, what does physics open up? Okay, but what does chemistry open up? Do you see what I mean? See, if chemistry opens up nothing, but physics 1 opens up physics 2, then maybe you need to take physics 1 so that you know that you're moving forward. Now, this is a civil engineer advising you on electrical engineering, and really the only thing I know about electrical engineering is that when you hit that button, the lights come on. And apparently I don't know that very well because it took me a while to figure that out. I'm being facetious, but I'm really not. I mean, I'm very hesitant to give specific advice for stuff outside my field because it's not my area. I know the civil curriculum like the back of my hand, but some of the other curriculums I'm a little iffy on, and that's why I'd rather tell you I don't know than just give you an answer and it be wrong. So, no problem. I got time for one more quick question. Anybody got anything? It's your time. I mean, if you ask something, I bet you somebody else had that question too. So, all right. Before we leave, she's like, getting out of here. Before we leave, make sure that you sign the attendance sheet. I'm gonna say one thing. Last week we caught a couple folks signing in, not just for themselves, but for some folks that weren't quite here because the head count didn't match the signatures. We're going to watch it like a hawk, so don't do that, all right? That's all I got. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Greg. Quite informative. Quite informative.